Thanks for checking out the DCAU Review YouTube page, aka the DCAU Tube. Before we get to today's episode, don't forget you can subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. You can also check us out at DCAUreview.com for the entire library of archives of every DCAU Review episode to date, including bonus episodes and being able to sort by your favorite villains, best and worst episodes, and entire scorecards for each and every episode. New episodes of the DCAU Review debut every Saturday at 10 a.m., 9 Central, on your favorite podcasting app, DCAU.com. Welcome, everyone, to episode 30 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your co-hosts, one of the good brothers, Cal. Alongside me, as always, my good brother. He's been here from the very beginning. He's still here, folks. And he's the DCAU Twitter guru. My good brother, Liam. Liam, 30 episodes in.
Yes, we're just under a year we've been doing this. We've gone to 30 episodes. And as hopefully our listeners know, we did a poll on Twitter over the last couple of weeks. Asked what you wanted to see for our 30th episode throughout a bunch of different options. And a dramatic come-from-behind victory for Secret Origins, aka the first 3 episodes of Justice League. And here we are.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. So we, as we always do when we start a new series or we begin discussing a series we haven't done so before, we kind of share some thoughts on our memories on this. So, of course, this debuted in, 2001? All right, yeah. 2001. So it means I would have been 13, probably going on, if not 14. Would have put you at about 10 when this debuted. I remember not, and of course this is before we didn't have the internet and didn't know about all this stuff. I remember our grandfather taped this off of Cartoon Network. We also didn't have cable. Yeah. So our grandfather taped this off of Cartoon Network for us. It was a huge surprise when we learned about it. And sitting down and watching this off of videotape and just being blown away by seeing not only Batman and Superman, but the introduction of characters that we didn't even know existed in the DCAU. Yeah. Really setting up the future for what the DC animated universe would eventually become with, more seasons of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and the greatness of that. So any thoughts on or memories on watching this episode or the Justice League in general?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely one I think we saw more than any other episodes because even... We definitely had it on tape, as you mentioned, from our grandfather. We also eventually was purchased for us on DVD. They basically did it as they basically just took out the credits and made it into a movie, right? On a single DVD. So we definitely watched this episode a lot. That's probably the biggest part of kind of learning more about. I knew a little bit about. We had some sporadic comics from the age, so we kind of knew there were other Green Lanterns, right? Besides Kyle Rayner, who was the Green Lantern of the comics at the time, or we kind of knew who the Flash was, obviously, and we knew who a lot of these characters were, but we didn't know them like that and really begin to understand their origins and
the rogues. Right. We were Batman and Superman guys growing up,
right? Exactly. So most of our comic reading, most of our show watching was mostly just Batman and Superman, and obviously a little bit of Batman Beyond at the time. Yep. So that was most of our exposure was the DCAU versions of these characters. So getting to step into that larger world and learn all these new characters and go into the origins and of Martian Manhunter as they do in this episode, and kind of realizing how cool and interesting a lot of these characters are. Even someone like Hawkgirl, who doesn't have a big role to play in the pilot here, but she mentions, she has this home planet of Thanagar, so she's an alien, and that's right. I remember I never knew. I may have known who Hawkgirl was, or I certainly knew who Hawkman was, but I didn't know anything about their crazy comic book origins and some of that stuff. Obviously, that comes into play down the line, but. Yeah, I just remember this definitely feels like it's a game changer, man. This is a completely different animal than anything.
Well, it really opens up the sandbox, man. Yeah. You had Gotham City, you had Metropolis, you had a little bit some of the crossovers in the Superman animated series, of course, had Aquaman and Lobo, and Superman was much more of a sci-fi, open up the world, go into visit into outer space, get some different dimensions. Mr. Mixie Spitlick, Superman was a little bit more, certainly widened the scope of things, but this really just smashes the walls, man, down, like brings the walls down, Yeah, and I think we might as well jump right into our scores here. So if somebody's listening to us for the very first time here, Liam, why don't we remind them what our scores are?
Sure, yeah. So every week we rate each episode or episodes that we review with the same 4 categories. The 4 are plot, animation and visuals, music, and voice acting. Each category is blank out of 10, meaning our final score will be blank out of 40. And we can also throw out any bonus points if something we want to talk about isn't covered under those main 4, or if we just want to give a special shout out to something
that tickles
within the
our
episode, a certain performance, anything, that we can always throw out some bonus points too. So to date, we've had 1 perfect episode.
One.
That was Heart of Ice, the classic Batman story. So, but it's not. But we have watched a lot of great episodes, and here we go at episode 30 of our show, with episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Justice League.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. So one of the first things that we can jump into, obviously, so the first episode, so on the DVDs and how it's presented, is broken down into parts 1, 2, and 3. I think it was originally debuted as a hour and a half long presentation of straight through. Of course, then it's broken down upon re-airings into 3 different parts. But your first part, I guess, is sticks with characters that you know. It's a lot of Batman doing investigations, a lot of Superman. Superman has been made essentially the world's defense against any invasions due to a similar the Superman 4 Quest for Peace style world disarmament. All countries have decided to disarm their nuclear arsenals in a quest for peace.
At the behest of this senator who was a former astronaut who had some sort of encounter on Mars with these aliens who then invade.
Right.
It seems like he's on the up and up, and that he feels that he's just seen the larger world, and that mankind isn't ready to decide that. So we need this outside force. We need the symbol of good and of Superman, and that delves into, as the Quest for Peace movie, which that movie is sort of well known for how terrible it is.
It's a laughing stock.
Yeah, but
you have it's a special place in your heart.
I love it a little bit, and I also think the basic idea of how involved Superman should be with world governments and deciding who's allowed to have nuclear warheads and stuff. I think that's a really fascinating idea. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, in Superman 4, it's not explored particularly delicately. It's
sure,
and then something happens in the moon, and
it's
the nuclear man shows up. It's very wacky, but that basic idea, I do think there's something interesting in there.
And we've seen other projects that delve into it. Superman is an agent of the government in The Dark Knight Returns, and it's an interesting. We talked about it back when we talked about Brave New Metropolis, and it's definitely explored further in Justice League with the Justice Lords, and how Superman's power should be used as far as leadership over countries, over should he have more of a role than just saving cats out of trees?
Correct. He's very much a reactive type of hero. He's there to put out the fires when they start. But so the idea of at the behest of the United States government, he's asked to basically disarm the entire world. And so he does it because he feels that for the long-term health of the world, that it's the right thing to do. I think it's a really interesting idea, and they explore it there, and it's sort of Superman's willingness to be a pawn for this evil alien race.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess let's jump right into plot, Liam. I went ahead, my score for plot for this week's episode, I went ahead and gave this, as I pulled my notes up here, My general thought was it's an interesting plot, and I think you said that a lot of it was borrowed from Grant Morrison's run on Justice League.
Yeah, the first volume of Grant Morrison's very celebrated JLA, where they now that wasn't meant to be an origin story in there. That was like the reforming of the sort of the classic Justice League. The Justice League in the 90s had been sort of like this sort of ragtag team where a lot of the big guns were pulled out of it, and like Aquaman and Booster Gold and people like that were sort of given a chance to be more at the forefront of it. So the JLA run, though, established it more back as it being sort of the all-star team book of Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and Martian Manhunter and the Flash. So that kind of arc in that book, it was the White Martians invaded. Then these aliens are never referred to as the White Martians, but it's sort of the same idea. They come from Mars.
And they're white, and they don't like the sun.
So there's a lot of similarities there, and sort of Martian Manhunter sort of being at the center of this invasion, and so it definitely borrows from that. But it's interesting, and you pointed this out to me. The first entire part of this first episode, there's just Batman and Superman.
It's just a Batman and Superman story for the beginning, so they let you get comfortable with characters that you're familiar with. Obviously, you have a new casting with George Newbern as Superman.
Yeah.
It's the first time we get to hear him as Superman rather than Tim Daly. But you're introduced to characters that you are familiar with. It's Batman and Superman working together. And then they slowly bring in, a couple of new or familiar characters. There's a Flash cameo very early on after the invasion starts.
Yeah.
And again, it's a new Flash. It's Michael Rosenbaum this time, who... #MyFlash. Michael Rosenbaum begins his performance and run as the Flash that will become legendary for sure. And then slowly you bring in the other characters. You have Wonder Woman, who starts out, and there's a brief origin. I think they do the origin for Wonder Woman very tactfully. It's not focused very heavily on her, but it kind of gives you just a taste of who she is.
Yeah.
And of course her backstory gets explored later on. And you do bring in two characters. There was a Green Lantern already in the DCAU. We know it was Kyle Rayner.
Yep.
He makes a cameo later on in the series, but this Earth's right now Earth's Green Lantern is John Stewart, who they go into his backstory in future episodes as well, and then of course they bring in the newcomer Hawkgirl, her origin story plays a huge role towards the end. Is it the first season or the second season? The end of the second season of Justice League. Her origin story really gets played out. So I think it's hard to juggle so many introductions of new characters. You had to introduce essentially 4 to 5 new characters here.
Yeah.
And I think it ends up being a Martian Manhunter story.
Yeah.
You get a lot of his backstory, a lot of his interactions, and ultimately at the end of the episode, he gets the victory. Like him versus the Grand, what is it?
The Imperium.
The Grand Imperium, is tremendous. There's some great lines delivered in there. We'll get into that in voice acting, but it's not perfect. I think there's some stuff that's left to be desired.
Post part 2, it's mostly just punching.
Yeah, it's a lot of punching.
And they sort of they split up to go, each attack a different one of these machines that's creating these brown clouds that blot out the sun. As you mentioned, not Crisis Red. They should have been red. They were these brown. They established that the aliens don't like the sun. They're nocturnal creatures, so they're blotting out the sun. So the team split up. Superman and Hawkgirl get captured. It appears Batman has died.
Yeah, that's a cool part of the plot. Actually, I had forgotten that they quote that Batman supposedly died, and then how they brought him back, and that was a good reveal. Ended up being a good reveal.
Definitely.
I gave plot because it's not perfect. There's definitely some holes in there. There's some stuff that I thought that could have been better. It's a lot of punching. It's new. It's certainly juggling that many characters too is a challenge. I think for what they had to do, they did a pretty good job. You'll notice as we move on, there are certain episodes that it's very rare that every character is featured on every episode.
True.
Just so that you don't have that problem of balancing that. So I gave plot 7 out of 10. What was your score?
Exact same. 7 out of 10. It's like I said. There's nothing it's not reinventing the wheel with the plot. Obviously, as we said, it's a lot of it's a lot of introduction. You got to introduce the Justice League. You got to introduce the Senator character. You got to introduce Snapper Carr. You got to introduce sort of the general who's sort of grumpy about Superman disarming all of the nuclear warheads, and turns out he's right.
Yeah,
but yeah, so there's a lot to juggle there. I went 7 out of 10 as well. It's good and it's solid. And as far as an introduction to a Justice League, if you're not familiar, if you're trying to introduce a newer fan to that they do a good job of setting up. As you mentioned, that first part, it's just Batman and Superman. They set up these guys who are the most capable, the greatest heroes we've ever seen. They're the world's finest, right?
Yep.
And even they can't handle this together. So the idea that they need more help, and so they go and thanks to Jean reaching out psychically to all these different heroes, they all sort of unite. And there's a little bit of infighting, but for the most part, these are heroes, and so they are able to kind of put those little petty differences aside and fight together as a team and win. And it's a really nice triumphant win at the end. And,
Agreed.
And Superman sort of welcomes Jean into the family. And there's sort of a nice little moment of Superman and Martian Manhunter bonding a little bit over being the last of their kind, which I think is a really cool little touch.
Agreed.
So yeah, overall, very good. 7 out of 10.
It's a strong 7 out of 10. All right, let's move to music, Liam. Music is a little bit different, I think, in that it's not straight up orchestral. It seemed more keyboards and organ. I don't know. Like it's there. It's good. It's not distracting. I think the triumphant music at the end, when the sun finally breaks through the alien ship and the clouds start to roll away as the sun breaks through, and Superman sort of begins to fight back, and I think that's very strong, and that ends up being kind of like the theme that rolls through the end of the episode. I thought that was good. I think the rest of the episode, it was interesting. We commented when the big reveal of Batman surviving happens.
Yes.
They used some other theme. It wasn't the Batman theme. I was like, oh, they should have gone with, even if it was a changed up, like lighter version of the Batman theme, that they could have gone with the Batman theme. You didn't hear the Superman theme. I don't remember really a Wonder Woman theme.
There's certain triumphant music that plays when Green Lantern first appears, when Wonder Woman first appears. But I guess we'll find out as we go along what officially becomes the Wonder Woman or Green Lantern or Flash theme songs. But yeah, I thought music is pretty darn strong through the first scene of them teaming up. The actual very first scene of the episode where Batman and Superman confront 3 of the aliens who are disguised as scientists. Really good, like sort of a frantic pace to it, but it adds a lot to it. So I went 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed the music, and I thought that those final that final 5 minutes or so of them finally kind of they've been on defense for most of the episode, and once the sun starts to sort of affect the aliens, now's the time to strike, and it feels as we've said, very triumphant and very like this is the superhero moment,
victorious.
Here's the comeback. So yeah, I really enjoyed the music in this episode.
I gave it 7 out of 10. It's different, very different. It's a very different number than yours. All right, let's move on to animation, Liam. So here's the thing. This is our first digital animation episode that we've watched. I think we haven't gotten into the digital episodes of Batman Beyond just yet.
It should be noted when we're watching the Batman the Animated Series, we are watching the original version. We are not watching the newly remastered HD version. We may watch a couple of those just to see.
Yeah, I'm interested. I know you've taken a peek at those, but this is it's a stark contrast between what we've been used to. It's very bright, very vibrant.
Yes,
but at the same time, it's almost. I don't know. There's a lot of light in this episode. It reminded me a little bit of some of the complaints that I had about Superman the Animated Series, where it just looks too clean, almost too bright. I also didn't like the backgrounds. I know that when they spend a lot of time on the alien ship, and it's supposed to look alien, but it looked more like Willy Wonka, or like it was just kind of. I don't know. It was distracting at some points to me. I didn't really care for it. It's gonna take a little bit to get used to, I think, just the different animation style. So for that reason, I went with 6 out of 10 for the animation. I will give kudos to the visual, the very slightly disturbing visual at the end, where Jean is being attacked and the tentacles go like under his skin and through his face.
Yeah.
And then he gets like sucked into the Grand Imperium, and it's like, it's really, it's cool. You know, he's shocking him. He's like torturing him, and you see the electricity going off and just his silhouette within the creature. Really cool visuals. And then the bubbling of the skin when he pulls him into the sun. Really, really good. But the other stuff was just kind of too little too late for me. So I gave 6 out of 10. You?
Pretty close around there. 5 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
I thought the strongest sequence as far as the action goes was the scene where Batman's being chased in the Batplane, Jean's been injured, and Superman's sort of lagging behind, dealing with some of the other ones, and a bunch of the alien ships attack, and the Batplane is damaged, and they're going down, and Green Lantern saves them, and then sort of the full League unites there. Mm-hmm. That's really, really cool, and that scene happened to be at night, and maybe that's part of why that worked a little better. Is there's a little more shadow, there's a little more
places to hide.
Yeah, you can hide a little bit more of those flaws, but. I mean, as far as we can talk about the design of everybody too, I guess here briefly. We don't need to talk about everybody in great detail.
But the redesign of Batman. Sure,
redesign of Batman. You have it's sort of a little bit, it's halfway, not quite halfway, but between the new Batman Adventures look and the Batman Beyond look.
Mm-hmm.
You have
longer ears.
You have the heels on the boots.
You have a cape that is over his shoulders at all times, by the way. Covers, goes down to his nips, basically.
Yes. It's a lot more of that sweeping cape, but...
Hashtag cape movement.
Hashtag cape movement. It's back, baby. We haven't been able to talk about it at all.
Had 3 capes in this with Martian Manhunter, Superman, and Batman. Right. You had triple the capes.
That's true. And we have wing movement.
Yeah, wing movement now, hair movement. Oh my gosh.
So many movements.
Lasso movement.
But it's like we've been reviewing Batman Beyond for the last 5 weeks, so I haven't been able to talk about hashtag cape movement at all. So I got to get it all out now.
This is true.
But I thought that was kind of the strongest sequence in any of the episodes, was sort of the initial team up of everybody. And I like the one thing we noticed, and I think it's probably known if you're listening to this podcast, but some of the characters have really defined cheekbones, like Superman does, Wonder Woman does. Yep. And it's not necessarily bad. It just looks strange.
It's a weird,
and I think the reason it looks strange is because they took them out after season 1.
Right.
So I know what the Justice League Unlimited character designs look like,
right? And
I'm used to those versions of Superman and Wonder Woman and whoever else. So even though this was on model for season 1, most of season 1 looks like slightly off model because they changed the model.
Right.
And I feel like I saw a lot more of Justice League Unlimited and season 2 of Justice League in reruns than I did of season 1. So even though it's not off model, it feels like in your brain that it is, just because they were still experimenting a little bit there.
I get it totally.
But as far as I like, we talked about that back when we did Speed Demons. I like this Flash design a lot more. Obviously, the darker red is the main color, and the lighter red is sort of his highlight color. It's basically the same design. Otherwise, he doesn't have the black ring around his suit, but it's pretty basic. And then we get our first appearances of Hawkgirl and Wonder Woman and Martian Manhunter, who are all pretty much their comic book versions. Some minor tweaks, but they all look good. They all fit into this DCAU style very well.
I agree completely. All right, Liam, let's move on to our final category, which is voice acting. Tell the good people at home, we got a whole new cast of people. We already mentioned briefly George Newbern is the new Superman.
Yes, sir.
But we have a whole new cast of characters that we'll be getting used to here. Why don't you tell our good listeners at home about our players in today's episode?
Well, so we have the entire new Justice League to introduce. We have Maria Canales as Hawkgirl. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have a big role to play here, but she's good.
No, she's fine, and she gets her time to shine later on in many more episodes.
And again, as you mentioned, there aren't that many episodes that have all 7 of them, so it's like at a certain point you're like, well, this character hasn't spoken in 2 minutes, so they have to have a line here.
Right.
You have, of course, Susan Eisenberg as Wonder Woman, who is to me that's Wonder Woman.
Right.
Like, I really like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman in the live action movies. There's been some other animated Wonder Woman, but come on, it's Susan. Like, she's Wonder Woman.
She is. Yep.
She's very good here. Phil Lamar as Green Lantern. Speaking of that, as Jon Stewart.
Yeah, he's real. Oh, he's
so awesome.
So good. He's so good.
I mean, he's a voice acting legend. He's been in everything. He was Samurai Jack. He was Static Shock. He was he's the judge on Family Guy. Right. Like he's been he's one of those guys, sort of like a male Tara Strong or somebody that's just he's been everywhere and. Such a versatile performer, and he sort of in this episode kind of plays the military man. He's very straight laced here. He's also like giving orders. He's dishing out tactics and stuff. So that I think that adds to his performance. Sort of adds to that sort of gruff, no nonsense military man that we know.
Yep.
You have Carl Lumbly as Martian Manhunter, who's outstanding.
He's out. Oh man, when the line that he gives when he pulls the monster in the sun. Oh my gosh,
so great.
Live underground and shun the light. Why? Does it burn your pale, putrid skin?
Ooh, that's one nasty sunburn.
And of course we have Michael Rosenbaum as the Flash, who I adore that man.
William's good personal friend.
Yes, last year or earlier this year at AwesomeCon, I got to meet him as well as Tom Welling in a group photo op for the Smallville show, which is part of my Michael Rosenbaum love.
I was going to say, rumor had it you asked him to be your dad.
Yes, maybe.
To adopt you.
No comment. But yes, but also, of course, Michael Rosenbaum, the definitive Wally West Flash here.
He's good.
He's very good. Doesn't have, not a huge role. He's sort of just the comic relief here. But again, he gets
his character gets plenty of fleshed out later on. Yeah.
And then aside from that, our main cast, we have Gary Cole as the senator, or the alien disguised as the senator, J. Allen Carter, who you probably know from playing the dad in Talladega Nights, or the lead commentator in Dodgeball,
Cotton,
or the boss in Office Space, perhaps most famously.
Yeah,
and you also have a sort of veteran voice actor, Kevin Michael Richardson, plays the Imperium and the General and a bunch of other voices. You also got Corey Burton's in there.
Yeah, little CB.
So, all of the sort of the stalwarts that you expect are there. Really strong cast, and everybody, especially Carl Lumbly, though. Like, again, as you mentioned, this really is a Martian Manhunter episode, and from him sort of giving the origin of these aliens to his speech at the end, as you mentioned, when he confronts the Imperium, to his that last little bit of him and Superman sort of talking about being orphans, it's all so tremendous, and a lot of that comes from Carl Lumbly. So I gave voice acting 8 out of 10 here. I think it's really, really strong. Maybe could have used a little bit more on the alien side.
Agreed.
Like it's just they're just understated. It's not bad. It's just sort of generic.
I'm sorry. You gave your score?
Yes, it was 8 out of 10.
Yeah, mine is a very, very similar, actually exact the same 8 out of 10. Also, and the reason was I was disappointed in the Imperium's voice. I thought it was just a little too plain. He's a fine actor, but it was just a little too plain of a performance for me. I was expecting something a little bit more, scary. Yeah. It's a weird character design too. It's like a big floating bubble. Essentially, it looks like something out of SpongeBob. If I had to, like the king jellyfish in SpongeBob or something. Yes. So like it's a weird character design as it is, and then it has this really human, like normal guy voice. I took a couple points off for that, but it's a strong cast. It's only going to get stronger as we go through these episodes.
Absolutely.
Super excited for it. Kevin Conroy, by the way. Don't miss the legend, the living legend. We almost brushed over him, but Kevin Conroy, of course, is as Bruce Wayne and Batman. Is just good. And George Newbern is coming in. It will come into his own also.
Absolutely.
I have a hard time going back and forth between him and Tim Daly, who I think I give the slight edge to George Newbern.
I think so too. I think there's a little more depth to Newbern's
Agreed.
portrayal.
He's got a little more range of emotion.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know. I think Tim Daly, he's been on TV for years. His style of acting may just be more of a visual style, but his voice generally, whether he's... I mean, and there's certain episodes, as we've talked about, if you want to go back in our archives on DCAUreview.com, certainly there's many great performances by Tim Daly in Superman the Animated Series, but his voice is just, it's similar to, it kind of just gets louder.
Right.
Like, when he's angry or happy or sad, it's just a very similar tone of voice, and that just might be how Tim Daly talks.
Right.
Like, so that might not be something he can really control, but George Newbern just seems to have a little... There's some warmth, there's the heroic quality that you need of Superman, but you still also feel like, okay, but really this is the farm boy, like, at heart. There's just a little more nuance to it, I think.
Of course, I know you left. We briefly mentioned it, but George Newbern's credits include playing the son and father of the bride, 1 and 2, and of course also playing Rachel's weird boyfriend on that starts out wearing like a wig and beard on Friends. He has a Friends episode. I think it's the episode where he's really close with his sister or something like that. So the relationship is really weird. But George Newbern, good job. All right, Liam. I think that there we go. It's the bonus point sound. I do, in fact, have a bonus point. You got any bonus points?
I do not have a bonus point.
Okay, I do have a bonus point. So bonus point for me, Liam, is going to be for the phenomenal intro to these episodes.
Oh, yes.
The title sequence for these episodes. Wow. From the music, we didn't talk about it in actual music, but the Justice League theme song. Oh, my goodness.
Yes, it was written by... The actual theme and the episodes themselves were scored by Lolita Ritmanis.
Nice.
She's becomes one of the regular composers. I believe she may have started on Batman Beyond. I don't know that for sure, but certainly she and Christopher Carter and some of that new age as Shirley Walker had retired and sort of took over here. It's phenomenal. It's such a perfect piece of music. Oh my gosh,
it's so good. And pairing that with the animation, it's all original animation, all computer-generated animation of the Justice League. They start it's a little cliched. They're all walking in slow motion towards the screen at the beginning. But then that immediately breaks into each individual character. Batman throwing the Batarang, Superman busting through the wall, Martian Manhunter going, changing shape, shape-shifting. You have then Wonder Woman with her bullets and bracelets. You got Green Lantern just after he's powered up his ring. Yeah. You got Flash sprinting across the screen, and then you just have Hawkwoman just kind of like floating. But it's a great sequence, and paired with the music, it's definitely worth a bonus point for me.
Awesome.
So that brings our final score. So I have a final score here of, 20... I didn't do the math beforehand. 29 out of 40, it looks like. What about you?
And I have a completely different 28 out of 40. A little behind the scenes, we didn't even talk about what our scores were before we went on here. So this was completely independent of each other. We gave very similar scores, as tends to happen quite often on the show.
We're just too similar. We're brothers.
But hey, every once in a while there's a disagreement there, and we have an alarm for it. You might, if you listen, over the next few weeks, you might even hear it once or twice.
It's an occasional disagreement alarm.
Yes, it happens so rarely that we had to have a sound effect introduced to mark the occasion.
That's right. All right, Liam. Well, before we begin our wrap-up, I do want to announce, we mentioned it at the end of last week's episode, we have an exciting giveaway promotion that we're going to be doing here to our listeners, just as a thank you. So here's what we're going to do. We are looking to increase the amount of followers on our Twitter page, so we're hoping to get up over 250 followers on Twitter. We're hanging around right now at about 140 or so. So there's going to be a tweet that you send out that is going to be required for people to retweet it, like it, and then also they have to be following us. And they also, once we reach 250 followers, we'll announce it, and they will have to tweet us the secret word. And Liam, why don't you tell them what the secret word is?
Cal, the secret word is Martian.
Martian is the secret word. Make sure. Okay, so we're gonna send the tweet out. You have to like the tweet. You have to retweet the tweet. You have to make sure you're following us. Once we hit the 250 mark, we will announce it, and then you have to send us the secret word. We will draw a winner from that, and the winner will receive a copy of the Batman the Animated Series game Almost Got Him.
Ooh.
Which is super exciting. Of course, based on the episode we have not yet reviewed, but is one of the classic episodes of Batman the Animated Series. I'm going to briefly read the description here. It says, the villains of Gotham City have gathered for a poker night and to share stories about the time they nearly dispensed with that troublesome Caped Crusader Batman. Little do they know that the Dark Knight is in their midst, disguised as one of their own. Which is the plot, obviously, of the episode of Almost Got Him. Sorry. Will the rogues be able to suss out the bat in their belfry before he can clandestinely subdue them? This variant on the popular werewolf-style deduction game, inspired by the memorable Batman the Animated Series episode Almost Got Him, adds a poker element to the proceedings, requiring participants to craft poker hands to activate their special abilities when the lights go out. Take on the personas of classic Batman baddies in a game where everyone has something to hide and no one is safe. With poker hands guiding the action, players have something to talk about. Everyone has an important role. No bystanders in this game. Too often, social deduction games begin with random accusations just to get the ball rolling. No so here. That's what it says, no so here. No so here. Players can request poker cards from other players and often see what cards other players are taking. Enemies are made when someone takes the card you wanted. Now you have a reason to be suspicious of another player. So it's a really cool game.
Sort of along the lines of, it's pretty popular, Secret Hitler is a version of this.
Okay, yep.
Werewolf, as they mentioned, is, I guess, the type of, or the genre of board game. But, yeah, basically, most of you are on the same side, except for the one player who's secretly, in this case, Batman.
Working against you.
So, yeah, it's a really cool concept. I've actually played this with a friend at a friend's house over one of the holidays last year. It's really fun.
Yep. So we just want to give one away as a thank you to listening to our podcast. So that will be coming up in the next couple of days. As soon as this episode is released, we'll send out the tweet and reminding you about how to participate in our contest. So thank you for listening to us. Thank you for making it. Helping us make it to 30 episodes. Thank you for interacting with us. Liam, as we mentioned already, in case the people who are listening here don't know, where can they find you on Twitter so they can get involved in this contest and so they can tweet us their thoughts on Justice League Secret Origins?
So you can follow us on Twitter at DCAU Review. This will be our contest tweet will be the pinned tweet at the top of our page. So if you just go to twitter.com/DCAU Review, it'll be the first tweet you see when you load up our page.
There you go.
You can look at us on Twitter. We'll put the contest there. We'll post a link. We'll probably just post a link to the Twitter, honestly.
Yeah.
So you can just follow us on Twitter.
Yeah.
But we do have a Facebook page if you prefer to interact that way. We don't really use it because it's very difficult to do so.
Mark Zuckerberg is the Grand Imperium.
That's true. He is the Imperium. Yep. And, I mean, he's an alien. Look at him. Look at his face.
He has no emotion.
Anyway, so
maybe he's a white Martian in disguise.
That would make a lot of sense.
Oh, spooky.
Would make a lot of sense. He's trying to... Never mind. Anyway.
You can also stream every one of our previous 29 episodes right from DCAUreview.com. We break it down by category. You can search by villain, series, series villain. It's great. You can make sure you check that out. Episodes are always streaming there. We stream Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. 9 Central. So be sure to check us out on there. Anything else, Liam, for this episode?
Yeah, I mean, again, if this happens to be your first episode, obviously thanks for listening, but you can definitely check us out. This is now, with this episode today covering Justice League, we've done at least one episode on all four of the big four shows. I guess technically it's 5 if you count Unlimited as a separate show, but I kind of fold that all under the Justice League umbrella. So of the big four, we've now done at least one on each of them. As you mentioned, Cal, you can find all of those in the archives at DCAUreview.com. Definitely subscribe to us on iTunes or on the Google Podcast app if you are a non-Apple product user.
Yeah.
And if you have time, leave us a review. Give us 5 stars, leave us a review. I know that's kind of a hassle, but it really does help us get more eyeballs / eardrums on the podcast. So if you were willing to do that, if you enjoy what we're doing, we appreciate that. But either way, we thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Well, that will wrap us up for today. I am Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we will talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.